I am Emily, Tiffany's older sister, and my life has changed forever since a decision I can never forget. It was not my decision, but I still have to pay the price for it. I used to think that my life would be just a peaceful day, but then everything changed, and it will never be the same again. Ever since I was little, I always knew I was different from Tiffany. She was the darling of the family, pampered unconditionally, while I was just a shadow standing behind. Tiffany was always the center of attention, the pride of her parents, and the one that everyone in the family paid attention to. As for me, I was just a follower, quietly in her shadow, never the center of attention, no matter how hard I tried. Tiffany was always loved, always the most pampered one. She never had to worry about anything. Everything came to her automatically like a priceless gift. Every decision, from going to school to shopping, revolved around Tiffany. She never had to work hard to get anything because her family always took care of her. As for me, I had to work nonstop, always having to please everyone, always trying to prove that I was worth it. But no matter what, I was still just Tiffany's shadow. My parents always saw Tiffany as smart, beautiful, and special. Since she was little, she was always pampered, from expensive toys to luxurious trips, all for her. I don't deny that Tiffany is very beautiful and talented, but I can't help but feel the obvious favoritism she receives. As for me, I'm just a foil for her, the one who always stands behind, quietly pursuing her own passion that no one cares about. That feeling made me feel unimportant. I was not the person my parents were proud of, not the person they expected. I always had to live in Tiffany's shadow, no matter how hard I tried. When I achieved something, my parents only gave me superficial compliments, while all eyes and attention were on Tiffany. She was always the most loved one, and I was just the one standing on the outside, looking in. This made me feel lonely and lost even in my own family. I used to think that I would never be able to escape Tiffany's shadow, but I was wrong. One day, everything will change, and I will be the one to decide to change it. My childhood years were just a series of days living in a lack of affection, always having to do everything to prove myself. I never dared to complain or protest for fear of disappointing people. Instead, I tried to create my own values, finding joy in things that only I understood. But those were small, quiet joys, unseen by anyone. Only me, with an old computer that I assembled myself and used to participate in small gaming tournaments. And then only I saw those silent efforts. While Tiffany was still cared for, loved, and always the center of attention, I had to find my own path. A path that I knew no one in my family could understand, but I was determined to pursue. My story begins here, from the small dreams that I could not share with anyone. I had no one to accompany me, and I did not expect understanding from my family. But I still believed that if I tried, I would find my own path. Ever since I was a kid, I loved the gaming world. It wasn't just a game, it was a way for me to express myself, to feel that I had value. I didn't want to live in Tiffany's shadow, and I decided that I would do everything I could to prove myself. I dreamed of becoming a streamer, a professional gamer, but it was a big dream, and I knew that no one in my family would believe it. When I told my mother about my dream, she just smiled and told me to focus on my studies. "Tiffany is the one who needs care and support," she said. It seems like you don't need anything." That was the sentence that made me realize that I would never understand them. They loved Tiffany in their own way, and I was just a quiet shadow beside her. It was not a pleasant feeling. I tried to learn to be quiet, to learn to live without the recognition of my family. I worked hard, participated in small gaming tournaments, and earned extra money from online advertising so that I could buy myself a gaming set. I did not expect my family to support me, but at least I wanted to prove that I could do it, that I could build my own future. I remember vividly the day I bought the computer I had been dreaming of for years. It was a $3,600 computer that I believed would change my life. It wasn't just a luxury toy, but an important tool in my journey to becoming a professional streamer. After a long year of hard work, I was finally able to buy it. Every time I saw the computer, I felt like it was an important part of my dream. And I believed that from here on, everything would change. I was ready to step into a new world where I would no longer be Tiffany's shadow. But everything changed on a day like any other. A day I will never forget. A day when everything I had worked hard for, everything I had saved for, disappeared in the blink of an eye. Losing the computer I had worked so hard to build was not just losing a piece of technology, but losing everything I had built over the course of a year. That day, I came home from a small gaming tournament, feeling on top of the world. I had learned new strategies and felt almost ready for bigger challenges. My plan was to live stream that night to test out new strategies and hopefully attract more viewers. But everything changed as soon as I walked into my room. The door to my room was the same as always, but when I walked in, the sight that greeted me made my heart sink. The room that had been filled with gaming equipment and other gadgets that I had painstakingly accumulated was now empty. The desk where I had placed my new computer, something I had worked and saved for a year, was gone. Everything I had built was gone. At first, I couldn't believe my eyes. I thought I must have forgotten something, or someone had borrowed it. But then I looked closer and realized that there was no sign of the house being disturbed. Everything in the house was quiet, nothing different. This strange feeling came over me like a wave. Something was definitely wrong. I rushed downstairs, where my parents were sitting drinking tea, chatting as if nothing had happened. When I entered the living room, the peace made me feel even more anxious. My parents looked at me, but neither of them seemed to care. "Where's your computer?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm, though inside I felt like a tidal wave was rolling. My mother still didn't raise her head, continuing to sip her tea as if nothing was important. She calmly replied, "We sold it." "Sell it? Why?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. All my hard work, all my sweat, was now just a value that was being sold without mercy. My father sighed, his voice a little tired as if this was normal. "Your sister needs a new outfit for an important event. We don't have enough money. It's the best decision for the family." "But that computer is mine," I shouted, my fists clenched in anger. "I spent a year working and saving for it. It's not just a toy. It's my livelihood, my way of making a living." My mother turned back, her eyes filled with annoyance. "Don't make such a fuss. We are your parents. We do what's best for the family. Tiffany needs a new dress for the event. What about you? You can earn money to buy another one." At this point, I couldn't hold back any longer. "Buy another computer? Do you have any idea how much time and effort I spent building this? How could I possibly get anything done without it? Do you have any idea how important it is to me?" "Enough," my mother interrupted, her voice hard. "You're just making a fuss. We've done the best we can. Tiffany needs things for the event. You have to understand." The anger inside me exploded. Mom's words were like a knife stabbing into my heart. They didn't acknowledge what I had done, what I had sacrificed. I was no longer a part of this family. They considered Tiffany more important than anything else, and I was just a shadow in their eyes. I walked back to my room, my heart heavy. This room was where I had spent my time, my heart, building my dreams. Now it was empty, just like how I felt right now, unappreciated, unloved like Tiffany. I sat down, my hands shaking as I wrote a text to Ethan, the only person I could confide in. Ethan was always there for me when I needed him and always supported me through the toughest times. Unlike my parents, unlike Tiffany, Ethan understood me. He understood me better than my own family. Mom and Dad sold my computer, I wrote, my hands shaking as I typed. Because Tiffany needs new clothes for the event, Ethan replied almost immediately. God, that's crazy. They didn't ask you. No, they just sold it to buy things for Tiffany, I replied, feeling my anger starting to rise. She's always like that. Everything has to go her way, and I always have to suffer in silence. Ethan texted back, you have to do something, Emily. Don't let them treat you like this. You deserve what you've worked for. Ethan's message hit me like a punch. He was right. I couldn't stay silent. I couldn't continue living in Tiffany's shadow. Even though my family might never understand, I had to stand up for myself. I decided, I can't live under my family's control anymore. I can't continue to endure this discrimination. I need to find a new path, my own path. The next morning, I decided to tell my parents that I was leaving. It wasn't an easy conversation, because I knew they wouldn't agree. But I had no choice. I needed to get out of this family, where I was not respected. When I said I was moving out, my mother started to get angry. Where are you going? Can't you live with this family? We are your parents. Why are you treating us like this? My mother shouted. I looked at her, unable to contain my rising anger. Do you understand? I have lived my whole life in Tiffany's shadow. I have tried my best to please you, but you have always considered her the most important person. I can't live like that anymore, Mom. My father said nothing, just looked at me with a disappointed face. But I knew I could not live forever in a family where I was not loved and recognized. I left, determined to find a new path for myself, knowing that there would be many difficulties ahead. But I could not continue to live a life hidden in Tiffany's shadow. That morning, I left the house without looking back. It felt strange, like I was stepping into a new world without knowing what I would encounter. I had no specific plans, no idea where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay there any longer. A strong determination had formed in my heart to escape Tiffany's shadow, to live the life I chose, no matter how difficult it was. I decided to rent a small apartment, not because it was too nice, but because I needed my own space, a place where I could do what I wanted without being watched or judged. For too long, I had lived by my family's expectations, living for their wishes. It was time for me to live for myself. The apartment I rented was in a quiet neighborhood, not far from the city center. It wasn't big, just a small living room, a bedroom, and a kitchen. For me, that was all I needed. A space for me to start over so I could focus on my work and my passion. I didn't need luxury, I just needed freedom. The first few days in my new apartment were tough. I was ready for an independent life, but I didn't expect it to be this tough. The graphic design contracts I received were small, barely enough to cover my living expenses. Every day I was faced with the question of whether I could survive in this city. At night, as I lay in bed in my tiny room, I couldn't help but worry about the future. Streaming hasn't been as smooth as I thought it would be. My followers are still few and far between, and my streams don't bring in enough income to make a comfortable living. Sometimes I feel like I'm stuck in a crossroads. One side is the path I've always wanted to take, the path of freedom and creativity. The other side is reality, the worries about money and the future. I usually spend most of my time working, but I also make time for live streams. However, the feeling of loneliness still haunts me. Although I have Ethan, my only close friend who always supports me, the lack of love from my family still makes me feel like an outsider in my own life. Every night, after a hard day's work, I sit in my small room, looking out the window. I see other families having dinner together, laughing and talking happily. The feeling of loneliness rises up inside me like a quiet river, washing away all the confidence I have worked so hard to build. Those are the times when I can't help but wonder if I can overcome all these difficulties. However, even though there were times when I felt helpless, I was determined not to turn back. I had chosen this path, and I would continue on no matter how many challenges I faced. I knew that I could only stand on my own, overcome difficulties on my own, and eventually prove that I could succeed without the support of my family. During that time, I began to realize that loneliness was not something that made me weak. On the contrary, it was a strength. Those long nights alone in my small room helped me realize a lot about myself. I no longer had to live for the expectations of others. I no longer had to hide my passions and desires. Loneliness helped me focus on the most important things, the goals that I always aspired to achieve. During those difficult days, I met an old family friend, Jennifer. She was a relative of my mother's, and we hadn't seen each other for a long time. One day, while I was working at my favorite coffee shop, I unexpectedly met Jennifer. She looked at me with gentle eyes, as if she understood what I had been through. "Hi, Emily," she said, her voice warm. "How have you been?" I couldn't hide my surprise at seeing her again, but still replied gently, "Hello, I'm fine. Just had some changes in my life." Jennifer sat down next to me, her eyes full of sympathy. "I heard you moved away," she said, a little sadly. "Your parents are very upset about that. They say you're selfish for not thinking about your family." Jennifer's words made me tense up a little. I didn't want to be tormented by my family's criticism anymore. "I don't want to upset my parents," I said, my voice soft but firm. "But I can't live under their control. I can't live in Tiffany's shadow forever. I deserve to have my own life." Jennifer was silent for a moment, her eyes a little surprised, but also understanding. "I understand," she said, "but sometimes your parents just want the best for you. They love you very much. They just don't always show it the right way." I nodded slightly. Jennifer's words made me think. Had I been too hard on my family? Could I have gone back and tried to work things out peacefully? But I knew I couldn't go back. It was too late. I had chosen this path, and I would never go back. One morning, as I was checking my email, an email came that surprised me. They were a large graphic design company, and they wanted to work with me on a major advertising project. This was the opportunity I had been waiting for. This opportunity would not only bring me a large income, but also give me a chance to prove to myself and to everyone that I could succeed without the support of my family. I read the email again, unable to believe my eyes. This was the opportunity I had been dreaming of for so long. But immediately, worries came rushing in. Could I complete this project? Was I capable of facing such a big challenge? I couldn't answer right away, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't pass up this opportunity. I thought a lot that day. But in the end, I decided to accept the offer and do my best. I started working immediately, working hard day and night to complete the project. I no longer looked back. I was no longer afraid of failure, no longer afraid of loneliness. I only knew that if I didn't try, I would never have a chance to start my life over again. Those days were tough. I had to work through the night, trying to come up with creative ideas for this advertising project. But I didn't feel tired. On the contrary, I felt like I was living in a new world. Every time I finished a part of the work, I felt my progress. When the project was finally completed and the company responded, I couldn't believe the results. They were so pleased with my work that they wanted to sign me on for a long-term contract. This not only brought me a great income, but also marked a major turning point in my career. I had proven to myself that I could be successful without having to live under someone else's control. The big design project I had just completed had not only brought me a substantial income, but had also been a turning point in my journey to establish myself in the world I had dreamed of. Everything seemed to be going in the right direction. But at the same time, it had also made me realize something important. No matter how successful I was, there was always a part of me that felt lacking the love of my family, lacking the connection and support I had always expected from my loved ones. In the following days, my work became more stable. I started to receive more graphic design contracts, and gradually, my live streams attracted more viewers. However, the evenings alone in my small apartment still made me feel lonely. I was no longer someone who lived by the expectations of my family, but I still could not escape the feeling of emotional deprivation, a feeling I had known since childhood. Also on those days, I received a message from my mother. It was the first time after I left that she took the initiative to contact me. "Emily, I know you're busy, but I want you to know that I love you. I was wrong to not understand you, and I'm sorry for what happened. Tiffany also said that you were right, and if you need anything, I'll always be here." Reading those messages, I felt a strange feeling. It wasn't anger, but a relief that I didn't expect. Maybe my mother understood a little bit of what I had been through, even though she still didn't fully understand it. But for the first time in years, I felt a change in the way she looked at me. I replied to her briefly, but sincerely. "Thank you, Mom. I love you. Anyway, my life has changed. I am no longer the little sister who has to live in Tiffany's shadow. I am no longer her foil. I have stood on my own 2 feet, found a job that I love and live freely, no longer under the control of my family. But I still cannot help but feel lonely. It still haunts me in the evenings when I sit alone in my room with no one by my side." While I was starting to settle down, things weren't easy for my family. The bad decisions they had made in the past were now starting to catch up with them. My parents were facing increasingly serious financial problems. From the lawsuit over my computer, they were accused of selling my property without my consent, and this lawsuit led to many other legal issues. However, what hurt me the most was not the financial loss, but how Tiffany remained so carefree, not realizing that she was part of the cause of our family's difficulties. She continued to live a lavish life, still attending big events and showing off her branded items. Tiffany remained unchanged. She never faced any difficulties because everything was taken care of by her family. While I had to work hard to be independent, Tiffany was still protected by her parents. One day, I received a call from Tiffany. Her voice sounded worried, a far cry from her usual smugness. "Sister, can you help me? My parents are in big trouble. They don't know what to do with this lawsuit. Can we help them?" At that time, I was not surprised. Tiffany had grown accustomed to living under the protection of her parents, never having to face the consequences of her actions. Now, when things got tough, she started to cry for help. "Do you think I can help you?" I asked, my voice cold. You and your parents ignored me when they sold my computer. They thought I was unimportant, that only Tiffany was the priority. Now you want me to help you? No, Tiffany. This is the consequence of what you did. Tiffany was silent for a long time. Maybe she didn't know what to say, didn't know how to justify her actions. I didn't feel sorry for her anymore. I was used to being forgotten in this family, while Tiffany was always loved and pampered. But even though I didn't feel sorry for her, I couldn't help but feel a little satisfied. What my family was facing was the price they had to pay for always favoring Tiffany and not caring about my sacrifices. This change would make them realize that life is not always handed to them, and they would have to face the consequences of rash decisions. Even though my life has stabilized, the family problems still do not go away easily. The story of the computer still haunts me. It is not just a material thing, but a symbol of everything I have endured over the years. My family never seemed to realize the sacrifices I have made to get the things I dream of. Even though my mother apologized, even though Tiffany may have realized her part of the mistake, I knew that things could never go back to the way they were before. I couldn't go back to living under that roof, where I was always considered invisible, where every decision had to revolve around Tiffany. When I decided to leave, I couldn't have foreseen the hardships that lay ahead. But now, I have found peace in my independence. Without the control of my family, without the unspoken expectations, I can live the way I want, doing what I am passionate about. And when I look back at the path I have traveled, I realize one important thing. My life is not about waiting, not about meaningless sacrifice. It is the path I choose, the constant struggle to find my true value. And no matter how many challenges, I will never turn back, because I have learned to love myself.